Hello, Tomlin here, and in this final episode of my series of 6 episodes of the podcast, I'm trying to answer the question about why we aren't surrounded by people who can play blues harmonica. Because harmonica is the #1 selling instrument on the planet, and yet hardly anyone actually learns it. So what is up with that? And also I'm going to give you a plan for how you can be one of the few people who actually stick with it and learn how to play it and get all of that fun that you can have from playing blues harmonica. So harmonica has an extremely low barrier to entry. A very good quality instrument is relatively cheap. And before the harmonica police get into the comments and say Hohner Special 20s are super expensive and it's disgusting how much they cost, try buying a good guitar or a good piano or a good saxophone and then get back to me about how much a Hohner Special 20 costs. So relatively low barrier to entry, and it's relatively unintimidating because it's small. I hear that so much from people when they start harmonica, say, oh, it's small, so it must be easy. And it's not. It's small, and that makes it actually quite a bit harder than a lot of other instruments. But that shouldn't put you off. We just need to be aware of what's going wrong when people start trying to learn blues harmonica and then don't actually get anywhere with it. So I think that the biggest issue is people trying to do it by themselves. Now, I'm not saying that learning harmonica by yourself is impossible. I learned harmonica mostly by myself for probably the first 10 years of my playing. But the one thing I know is I would have learned a lot faster if I had gone about things differently and not tried to do it by myself. I did exactly what most people do, which is jumping around all of the amazing free content out there. So going through the YouTube rabbit hole, watching a little bit of Jason Ritchie, a little bit of Adam Gusso, a little bit of Ronnie, a little bit of Liam, all of those people. They're all great, and there are loads that I haven't mentioned who are also great, so I'm not saying that there are other people who I've omitted who aren't great. There are just so many great creators and teachers of free content. But the problem is that the YouTube algorithm wants us to jump around from lesson to lesson to lesson and not actually focus on a curriculum. And the next thing is people tend to not actually hear very well what they're doing. So they'll listen to themselves while they're playing, and I've noticed students fall into 2 categories here. There are the people who think they're doing brilliantly and are completely wrong. And then there are the people who think they're doing terribly and are completely wrong. And the reason for both of these outcomes is that it's very, very difficult to critically listen to yourself playing while you're playing. And it's also extremely difficult to accurately assess your own playing if you're just starting out. You haven't developed that expert ear. So not knowing whether you're doing something right or not is really holding you back. And then the next thing is just not focusing. Playing the harmonica for a couple of weeks at the beginning because you're really excited, then putting it down, forgetting about it, then finding it again in a drawer 3 months later and thinking, oh, I really should get that harmonica out and play something, and going and watching a lesson and trying to learn it and then putting it away, and you don't have focus, and so you don't really get anywhere with it. And then the thing that I hear when I tell people what the solution is, which is to, find either a teacher or a school, they say, oh, I'm going to do that when I'm better, which is just completely baffling because surely the teacher and the school will help you to get better. And so that's really the problem, is trying to do it by yourself without a clear plan and without feedback and without a focus. So before I help you really dial that in, I just want to tell you about something that I'm doing throughout the month of September that I'm pretty excited about, because September feels like back to school time for me, even though I've not been in school since 2004. But there's still that kind of excitement about summer's over and we're going to get our heads down and do some work. So throughout the month of September, I'm actually hosting a giveaway of a whole year's worth of tuition at my school. So that's worth $399, and a pro-level harmonica, Hona Special 20, for 3 people. So 3 people will get that package. And everyone who enters the giveaway will also get a special link to get a free month at my harmonica school, which is worth $49. And you don't have to put your payment details in. So this is a no strings attached free month at my school where you get all the important stuff that's going to help you to improve on the instrument. So the link for that is in the description below, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why you need to be part of a school or be getting private lessons. So the thing that a teacher or a school can provide you, my school and many other schools out there, we can provide you a curriculum, accountability, and feedback. And just to kind of really summarize that, it's the difference between free lessons online and an education. So let's break it down. What does the curriculum give you? So a curriculum takes you from whatever point you're starting, let's imagine you're a complete beginner, and lays out every step that you need to work through in order to keep improving at a steady pace. If you don't have a curriculum, you jump around and you might be playing something that's for an advanced player without knowing it, or trying to play something for an advanced player. You might be playing something that's too simple for you without knowing it. But step-by-step curriculum, you know exactly what you should be working on. So that takes a lot of the guesswork out. The next thing is accountability. If you have the requirement to upload a recording, or you've got other students who are working on the same content as you, the same curriculum as you, and you don't want to kind of let your group down, you're going to feel a lot more accountability to do the practice. And also, if you're paying a teacher, however much you're paying your private teacher, you're going to do the practice, or you're more likely to do the practice. I certainly know that when I started getting lessons with my harmonica heroes, I was paying what was a significant amount of money for me, maybe not a significant amount for you, but significant for me, and that was enough to get me to really focus and do the practice and work exactly on what they were getting me to work on. And then I made much quicker improvements. And that brings me to the third thing that I mentioned, which is feedback. So you can listen to yourself playing as much as you want, and you might either think that you're doing great or not great, but that's not necessarily an accurate picture. So that's where having a teacher, someone who has an expert ear listening to your playing, will really, really help you. It'll help you to develop your own ear, because you'll play a certain way. A teacher will tell you yes or no, that's great, and you'll start learning what's great, what's not great. But also, the teacher can say, this is great because you're doing this, and this isn't great because you're not doing this, or you should be doing this. And this is how you're going to improve it. So, for example, one of the most common things that we have in the early days is not very pretty sounding notes on the harmonica. And I know a lot of people don't like me using the word pretty. They think blues should be kind of hard and macho, but I'm sticking with the word pretty, because it's the difference between a note that sounds like this, and that's a pretty note, and a note that sounds like this. That's an ugly note. I would definitely want the pretty notes. One of the things that we see at the beginning with most people is that they are playing too hard and with too much tension. So a teacher can look at you and say, okay, well, you need to relax your shoulders, you need to relax at the back of your neck so that you're not tensing your jaw, and let your tongue rest in the base of the mouth and play with half as much air force. And then you can get a nice, clean, pretty sounding note. And a lot of people just potter around by themselves for years and maybe never get that nice sounding note. But you can really kind of jumpstart that by getting a teacher just to give you feedback right at the beginning. So it doesn't have to be with me. You don't have to join my school, but you've got to find a teacher and a teaching style, most importantly, that really resonates with you. So I suggest you go out there and look and find someone that you really resonate with and be one of the small percentage of people who actually practice the instrument and start getting good enough to enjoy playing it. Because it really doesn't take much to be good enough to enjoy playing. And then once you're good enough to enjoy playing, then you just keep playing and you keep improving. So look for a teacher or look for an online school, or if you're lucky enough to live somewhere where there's an in-person school, look for that. I highly, highly recommend doing that rather than jumping around the YouTube blog rabbit hole. All right, so this is the last in my series of 6 episodes of the podcast for blues harmonica beginners. I hope you've enjoyed them. Drop a review or a comment to let me know if you'd like me to continue this kind of thing, or if you're not really into podcasts, just let me know. And don't forget, for the month of September, you can get a whole year and a free harmonica if you're one of the lucky winners of my giveaway. And even if you're not one of the winners, you can get a free month at my school. You can get feedback from teachers, and we've got some awesome teachers: Todd Parrott, Richard Slay, Sandy Weltman, so some big names there. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below. All right, thank you so much. Take it easy. Happy harping.